मिनिस्टर। यस यस मिस्टर मिनिस्टर, आप रिप्लाई स्टार्ट करें प्लीज।
माननीय सभापति जी,
पॉइंट ऑफ ऑर्डर नहीं होता है अभी कुछ।
बजट की चर्चा के बाद फाइनेंस बिल की चर्चा में भी 30 माननीय सदस्यों ने भाग लिया है। उन सब ने देश की अर्थव्यवस्था के संबंध में और फाइनेंस बिल के अंदर जो प्रावधान है उसके संबंध में अपने विचार रखे हैं। चर्चा की शुरुआत हमारे सबके वरिष्ठ सहयोगी श्री वीरप्पा मोइली जी ने की थी। मैं उनका भी विशेष रूप से आभारी हूं। मुझे इस चर्चा के संबंध में, क्योंकि काफी विषय वो थे जो बजट की चर्चा के साथ ओवरलैप करते थे, तो जो बातें उस चर्चा में आ चुकी हैं मैं उनको दोहराने का प्रयास नहीं करूंगा। कल कारगिल युद्ध की 15वीं सालगिरह है और उसका विजय दिवस है। आज से ही देश भर में जो लोग शहीद हुए थे उनको भी श्रद्धांजलि देनी लोगों ने आरंभ की है। और इसलिए मैं उपयुक्त समझता हूं कि देश की रक्षा और डिफेंस के लिए जो इन प्रावधानों में किया गया है उसके ऊपर एक बार मैं सदन का ध्यान दिला दूं, क्योंकि देश के अंदर स्वाभाविक है कि इतना बड़ा देश है, सरकारी विभाग, सरकार के ऊपर खर्चा, गरीबी उन्मूलन की जितनी योजनाएं, उनके ऊपर जितना व्यय होता है उसमें से हमें एक प्राथमिकता देश की सुरक्षा भी है। देश की सुरक्षा को लेकर एक चिंता है कि किसी प्रकार से भी जो हमारे सैनिक हैं उनकी जो अपेक्षा है कि रेडीनेस, तैयार रहने की, उसमें किसी प्रकार की कमी ना आए। जो इंटरिम बजट में वोट ऑन अकाउंट में प्रावधान किए गए थे उसमें मैंने रेगुलर बजट में इस बार 5,000 करोड़ रुपया और जोड़ा है देश की सुरक्षा के संबंध में। इसके साथ साथ प्रावधान किया है और इसमें मेरी जो सैनिकों के, पूर्व सैनिकों के संगठन हैं, जो मौजूदा सर्विसेज हैं, उनसे भी चर्चा हुई है कि जो एक अपेक्षा चल रही है सेनाओं की कि 1 रैंक 1 पेंशन हो, इस बार बजट में उसके लिए एक स्पेसिफिक प्रावधान किया गया है। जितने भी योगदान की उसके लिए आवश्यकता होगी, एक बार उसकी चर्चा समाप्त हो जाए और वो जो फॉर्मूला है कैलकुलेशन का, सिद्धांत को हम लोग स्वीकार कर चुके हैं, अब केवल फॉर्मूला कैलकुलेशन का है जिसको लेकर चर्चा हो रही है। 24 अप्रैल को एंटनी साहब डिफेंस मिनिस्टर थे तो उन्होंने भी एक कमेटी इसके लिए बिठाई थी। जैसे ही उस पर चर्चा पूरी हो जाती है तो उसके संबंध में भी जो खर्चा होना है उसके प्रावधान यहां पर किया गया है। एक मांग और अपेक्षा रही कि इस देश के अंदर कोई वॉर मेमोरियल नहीं है। जो पहले विश्व युद्ध में बहुत बड़ी संख्या में भारतीय सैनिक थे जो शहीद हुए थे, उनके लिए एक वॉर मेमोरियल बना जिसको हम इंडिया गेट के नाम से जानते हैं। लेकिन 1947 के बाद लगभग 21,000 से ज्यादा सैनिक हैं जो चाहे युद्ध में, चाहे किसी आंतरिक कारण की वजह से देश के लिए शहीद हुए हैं, उनके लिए अभी तक वॉर मेमोरियल नहीं बना। उस वॉर मेमोरियल की भी कमिटमेंट हमने इस बार दी है और प्रयास यह है कि उसको स्वीकार करके उसका कुछ स्थान भी हम लोगों ने आइडेंटिफाई किए हैं। एक ये भी अपेक्षा है कि बहुत देशों में है कि हमारे देश में कोई वॉर म्यूजियम नहीं है और इसलिए आर्म्ड फोर्सेस ने ही एक जगह आइडेंटिफाई की है, इंडिया गेट के नजदीक ही उन्हीं की जमीन है, प्रिंसेस पार्क में, जिसके लिए प्रावधान हमने वॉर म्यूजियम के लिए भी इस बार किया है। Madam Moily Saab, when he initiated the discussion, I must say with my utmost affection and regard for him, he started on the right note. He advised us to be aggressive on the reform process because he felt that the economy has to pick up once again. Some of the points that he mentioned, he must seriously realize that these were issues, if not problems, which in one sense which we have inherited as a part of continuity of government. I am glad he virtually expressed himself against the concept of a retrospective taxation. I agree with him that it sends a very bad negative signal, and it hasn't helped our economy itself. And therefore one of my jobs was to find a solution to the problem. Some members have expressed an apprehension as to why I used a phrase that there is a sovereign right of parliament. Of course, every parliament in the world has a sovereign right. They have a sovereign right to legislate, they have a sovereign right to legislate even retrospectively. The British Parliament has imposed several taxes which are retrospective. There are cases in which retrospective taxation, legitimate cases, has been levied by Indian Parliament. And I'll give an illustration. Assuming there is a tax collected over a period of 40 years, and the tribunal comes to a finding that there is some technical flaw in this. So are we going to refund 40 years of taxation already collected? Therefore we retrospectively legislate to legitimize what has already been collected. That's a sovereign right. So I can't be faulted for saying that Parliament has a sovereign right. But I have said, as a policy, the present government will not use that right to create new liabilities. And that's an assurance we wanted to give to investors within the country and investors outside, so that we are able to assure people of a stable tax regime. Moily Saab is right when he says extra aggression sends a wrong signal in the matter of tax collection, and therefore the phrase which critics of his government had been using, tax terrorism, is a phrase he used himself. I have taken several steps, I'll just illustrate some of them, in order to put an end to this whole proposal, to this whole environment. I was surprised when I found that Moily Saab himself was a little critical of GAR, because he said it's sending a fright signal amongst taxpayers. I must confess that I have not yet gone into the whole issue in detail because we were busy with the budget exercise. But I now intend spending some time, and then the government will take a final view as to what we are to do with the proposal which is already pending. He mentioned the problem of stagflation. Now, it's actually a contradiction in terms. If you have stagnation, that's normally a sign of recession, that there is no economic activity. In inflation, the money supply has increased, so there is a lot of activity otherwise. But there are rare cases, and that is why this phrase stagflation was coined, that you have a slowdown in the economy and an inflation at the same time. And therefore this was referred to as stagflation. I think it will be too extreme to say that we had reached that situation. Our growth had slowed down, but that there was stagnation may be perhaps an overstatement. And it is this slowdown which we really need to fight today. And my entire effort has been, through the various proposals in the finance bill, that we must be able to generate more economic activity more industrial and manufacturing activity, put more money in the hands of the average citizen so that his spending also increases, and this larger economic activity will then lead to an enhancement of the growth rate itself. Inflation can't only be tackled by hiking the interest rates. When you have larger economic activity, you then tackle the supply side also. You make more goods, more products, more commodities, more agricultural items available in the market. That is one way of fighting inflation. And therefore, the whole approach of the budget and the roadmap which we have in mind is intended to be in that direction. I wish to join issue, though I personally don't feel that the movement in the stock exchange or the capital market is the only indication of how well the economy is doing. Moyle Saab felt that the capital markets have received our proposals very badly. Well, if that were so, the capital markets would not have reached the record height in its figures. I still don't treat it as any test or measure or an approval of the budget itself. The capital markets have their own logic and they proceed on their own logic. But your assessment that they've fallen is factually not borne out because they've reached a record height itself. My colleague, हमारे साथी निशिकांत दुबे जी जब बोले तो शायद बहुत खूबसूरत अच्छा बोले, लेकिन बोलते बोलते उन्होंने कह दिया कि मेरे जीवन में तो काला धन इस देश में वापस नहीं आने वाला है। मैं चाहूंगा कि हम सब उनकी बहुत दीर्घ आयु की प्रार्थना करते हैं, लेकिन उनको बहुत लंबी अवधि तक इसकी प्रतीक्षा नहीं करनी पड़ेगी। अध्यक्ष जी, एक समय था कि जब लोग कई कारणों से कालाधन विदेशों में रखते थे, टैक्स हेवन्स में रखते थे, और टैक्स हेवन की कल्पना यह थी कि वहां कोई प्रश्न नहीं पूछे जाते, वहां आपको एक सीक्रेसी मिल जाती है, किसी ट्रस्ट के नाम से वो अकाउंट होता है, और वो टैक्स हेवन्स उनकी अर्थव्यवस्था इसी प्रकार के साधनों के आधार पर चलती थी और वो कोई जानकारी नहीं देते थे। देयर वर फायरवॉल्स इरेक्टेड अराउंड द सिस्टम, और यह असंभव था कि उन दीवारों को तोड़कर कोई जानकारी ले ले। उसके बाद एक अगली स्टेज आई कि जब इन टैक्स हेवन्स में से कई ने कहा कि अगर ये अपराध का पैसा है, इफ इट्स प्रॉफिट्स ऑफ क्राइम, and this is on the principle of dual criminality, a crime in both the jurisdictions, that is in the tax haven and in the requesting country, then they will start cooperating. लेकिन केवल टैक्स इवेजन की वजह से आया है या करेंसी वायलेशन की वजह से आया है तो वो सहयोग नहीं करते थे। लेकिन विश्व में भी आज इस विषय पे भी बहुत दबाव है, क्योंकि पूरा विश्व में बहुत बड़ी संख्या में लोग हैं जो इस प्रकार की मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग के खिलाफ हैं, और अब जानकारियां मिलनी आरंभ हुई हैं, समझौते भी हुए हैं। यूपीए सरकार ने भी एक समझौता किया था, लेकिन उसमें स्विट्जरलैंड की कंडीशन थी कि जो नाम आपको देंगे आप बताओगे नहीं किसी को, और ये भविष्य के लिए होंगे, पुराने वाले नहीं होंगे। कुछ जानकारियां दो साधनों से हम लोगों को मिली हैं। मैंने पिछले सप्ताह भी उत्तर में कहा था कि एक जानकारी मिली जो इसी प्रकार का एक टैक्स हेवन था, लिंचनस्टाइन, जिन्होंने कुछ नामों की जानकारी दी है, और दूसरे नाम वो थे जो स्विट्जरलैंड में एक बैंक में कुछ लोग भारतीय लोगों के खाते थे, और वहां से किसी ने वो पूरी जानकारी केवल भारत की नहीं थी, पूरी दुनिया के कई देशों की थी, निकालकर फ्रांस को दे दी, और फ्रेंच गवर्नमेंट ने एक समझौते के तहत उसको भारत को दिया है। उसके संबंध में भी हम लोग कार्रवाई कर रहे हैं। जून के माह में 22 तारीख को यह खबर छपी थी कि एक भारतीयों की सूची स्विट्जरलैंड देने को तैयार है, तो हमने 23 तारीख को ही उनको पत्र लिखा कि हम लोग चाहेंगे कि अन्य जानकारी आप हमें दीजिए। बाद में उनका जवाब आया कि वो जो खबर छपी थी पीटीआई के हवाले थे, उनके जवाब से लगा कि वो शायद सही नहीं थी, और उन्होंने कहा भारतीयों की कोई अलग सूची हमारे पास नहीं है। लेकिन हमारे पास जितनी भी जानकारी मिल रही है, पहला कदम हमारी सरकार ने उठाया था कि एसआईटी का गठन कर दिया था, जो 3 साल पहले सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने आदेश दिया था। यूपीए सरकार का यह मत था और यह दरखास्त भी उन्होंने सुप्रीम कोर्ट को दी थी कि यह कोर्ट के अधिकार क्षेत्र में नहीं आता, यह सरकार करेगी। हमारी सरकार ने इस विषय पे सबसे पहले चर्चा की और हमें लगा कि काला धन बाहर पड़ा है देश से, किनका है और कितना है, यह विवाद का विषय हो सकता है या जानकारी का विषय हो सकता है। इसमें यह अधिकार सुप्रीम कोर्ट का है कि हमारा है, इस ज्यूरिसडिक्शनल बैटल में पड़ने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। और अगर कोर्ट भी इसमें कुछ आदेश देना चाहता है और उनकी एसआईटी कदम उठाना चाहती है, तो सरकार उससे पूरा सहयोग करेगी। और जितनी जानकारी हमारे पास आ रही है, हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट को भी उसकी जानकारी दे रहे हैं। जीएसटी के संबंध में कहा गया कि इसको लाना चाहिए, अधिकतर सदस्य उसके पक्ष में थे। कुछ राज्यों की अपेक्षा और सभी राज्यों की अपेक्षा है कि जो सीएसटी कॉम्पेंसेशन का वायदा किया गया था वो दिया जाए। मैं उसके लिए कहां से साधनों की व्यवस्था होगी इसका प्रयास कर रहा हूं, और 2 बैठकें मेरी राज्यों के साथ हो चुकी हैं, और हम लोग प्रयास करेंगे कि शीघ्र से शीघ्र इस वर्ष के अंदर ही कम से कम कानून जो बनना है उसके संबंध में हम लोग इस देश के अंदर बना दें। और जिन सदस्यों ने यह कहा, और मौली साहब ने बड़ी स्पष्टता से कहा, और मैं उनके साथ पूरा सहमत हूं कि जीएसटी आने से इस देश की जीडीपी के ऊपर अच्छा असर पड़ेगा, वो बढ़ेगी और पूरे देश को लाभ होगा, राज्यों को भी होगा, केंद्र को भी होगा। मैडम, a question is repeatedly raised, particularly by some of my friends in the left parties, and this question used to be raised against the UPA government also. Along with the budget documents, there is a booklet which says taxes foregone, and that runs into some 5 lakh crores plus. And the charge which is normally made against the governments is, why don't you collect these taxes? And these will be enough to meet a lot of demands. Now these taxes foregone, I personally do not know who decided to publish this booklet, because these are not taxes which are due and recoverable. It started with 2005-06. But let me just explain so that this issue is not raised again and again. Now to senior citizens we give a rebate. That is tax foregone. Under section 80C we give rebates, that whoever makes a provident fund, bank deposit and various, these are taxes foregone. For those who buy property, for interest we give a rebate. That is taxes foregone. In several products, you have exemption notifications because we want to bring the rates down in order to encourage the economy. And therefore, this practice from 2005 was to add to transparency. But this should not be confused as taxes due and not charged. These are taxes which are actually not due, in order to either give relief to a set of assessees or to industry. You are not levying high taxes.
Please. Minister is not there.
Yes. Yes, sir. Rather, so first of all, let's be very clear what is taxes foregone, and let us not mislead each other as to what is taxes foregone. Now your charge is that corporates get a relief. The law permits it. Your government did it, every government has done it. No, it's a big amount, but if, let's be very clear, and it's an area where you and I can differ, because I have repeatedly said so, ours is not a high tax government. A high tax government will not encourage business and industrial activity in India. A high tax government will never be able to create jobs. A high tax government will never be able to create a situation where we are, because ultimately what do consumers want to buy? When you go to buy, you said in the morning today that you went to the State Bank, you wanted to buy a car. You want to buy a car, you don't want to buy taxes. Consumers buy products, they don't buy taxes. So please allow me to. Yes. So if consumers start buying taxes, if you load every product with very high level of taxes, your products will become non-competitive in the market. So this whole grievance that you make, why are people buying products coming from China and elsewhere? Because they've mastered the art of low-cost manufacturing. And one of the factors in low-cost manufacturing is lower rates of interest, lower rates of taxes. And that is why their industry has moved ahead. Now, if you want, we can disagree. We need not necessarily disturb each other.
Please.
Now, let me give you an example. Last 2 years, the manufacturing sector in 1 year was flat, in the other year was negative. The previous government in February decided that to automobiles, capital goods and consumer durables, to actually by notification reduce the level of taxation. Less cars were being sold in India, less consumer durables were being sold in India because the economy wasn't doing well. I saw the effect of that, and they did it for only 3 months. I have extended it till the end of the year. And the effect immediately was, in the month of June, this started in February, the UPA government's decision was to end it by 30th June. I have extended it to the end of the year. The effect of it was, we suddenly saw, of all these products, the market was back, the manufacturing had increased, the sales had increased. Now, are we to make these products costlier and sluggish, non-competitive against foreign products, or are we to make sure that Indian products also are able to sell in the market? So the effect, madam, is that we are interested in creating a situation where the sentiment in regard to the Indian economy, which had been disturbed in the eyes of investors in comparison to the global economy, we revive that sentiment back. And therefore, in order to revive the sentiment back, you need to take certain steps. I had said in my response to the budget debate, there is no contradiction in being pro-poor and pro-business at the same time. Unless you are able to generate revenues, how will you service the poor people in the country? How will you have poverty alleviation schemes? And therefore, Indian economy doing well, that is how we'll be able to take care of the lower, the least privileged 30% as far as India is concerned. Madam, with regard to the finance bill, my approach has been, or the government has been, we try and resolve disputes. We try and end arbitrariness. We try and give as much relief to the vulnerable as is possible. And therefore, the sets of reliefs that we have given as far as the individual taxpayer is concerned, the exemption limit of 2 lakhs, I have raised it to 2.5 lakhs. There is a lot of tax sacrifice involved. For senior citizens, it becomes 3 lakhs. The saving rates in India had gone down. In just 1 year, from 33% savings came down to 30%. And savings are not savings you put in the pocket. Savings are those which individual people who save money, they put it in banks, they put it in provident funds, they put it in various instruments. And savings become a national investment. The economy, the infrastructure is all built out of these savings. And savings are going down, which means the economy will do badly. So I had to encourage the savings. So I encouraged the saving exemption from 1 lakh to 1.5 lakhs. So every taxpayer in India now has the facility of, there are crores of taxpayers, of investing 50,000 more in savings because he'll get a tax rebate. He will get a rebate, and this money in turn, this saving will become an investment, which will go into our financial institutions. Real estate is a major driver of economy in India. To encourage real estate, the exemption limit with regard to the deduction which is allowed in regard to interest on loans which are to be repaid back, from 1.5 we have made it 2 lakhs a year. 2 lakhs a year actually means that the interest deduction that you will get in your income tax is 17,000-18,000 rupees a month. And in case Reserve Bank, if inflation moderates, brings down the interest rates, eventually we will want to go back, which I have said last time also in this house, that taking an apartment for a middle class person or a lower middle class person, taking a property on rent will become costlier, buying it will become cheaper. And that is how you will not only encourage cement, steel, create jobs, but encourage the whole sector itself. We've used the fiscal policy and the finance bill to give a fillip to manufacturing sector. Our manufacturing had become flat or negative. So the sunset clause, that those who invest in power sector, देश में बिजली नहीं पैदावार होगी तो अर्थव्यवस्था कहां से चलेगी? So I have extended the sunset clause. So today if you invest in power sector, you get tax rebates. Those who invest in industry used to get a tax rebate in terms of investment allowance if they invested up to 100 crores. Now not many people can invest 100 crores. To give a fillip to mid-level business people, the MSMEs, I have brought that limit down to 25 crores. You invest up 25 crores, you get a tax rebate itself. As a pattern I have brought down, except for some products, like cigarettes or pan masala or soft drinks, as a pattern I have brought down the custom and excise duties in most products which are being manufactured. It's a misnomer, let me repeat, that this is a rebate to the corporates. When it brings down the cost of these products, it encourages Indian industry and becomes a rebate to the consumers. The consumers will get these products cheaper. Because if the corporates decide to still sell them at a costly price, they'll outmarket themselves. Somebody else will factor in the rebate and the consumers will get the rebate. To portfolio investments, there were some rebates which were available. Our tax structure was not suitable. So a large number of our managers used to locate themselves in Singapore. So I have brought those rebates so that that entire investment can come back to India and they can relocate themselves. I mentioned that I have, with regard to the future, provided a cushioning against retrospective tax, and this was also a question which was raised by Shri Arun Jaitley in the morning. And I have gone ahead and let the judicial process sort out the past. For the future, we won't allow this problem to take place in India. To simplify, an advanced ruling mechanism for domestic investors. आज कोई विदेशी या कोई एनआरआई इस देश में पूंजी लगाता है तो वो पहले ही जा सकता है और पता लगाए कि मुझे पहले बता दीजिए कितना टैक्स लगेगा. I have extended this for simplifying the tax structure to domestic investors. A number of investors, both domestic and international, and thousands of crores are locked in litigation on transfer pricing. I have simplified that whole issue by detailed guidelines which have been brought into the finance bill itself in order to settle tax disputes so that lakhs of crores are not blocked. I have expanded the whole concept and the functioning of the settlement commission. I have given a statutory recognition to a consultation mechanism, and those can be followed up by guidelines issued by the CBDT. Now there are a large number of issues which the honorable members have raised. I'll certainly, for future planning, keep most of those issues in mind with regard to taxation planning. But even after announcing the budget proposals, a number of issues have been raised in this house by members and also representations which we've received. With an open mind, we've examined each one of them. Mutual fund was a facility which we had given really for the retail investors. Bulk of it was being used by corporates and it was being used for arbitrage. And therefore, that concessional rate of taxation which was available, in the budget proposals I had put it to an end with effects from 1st April 2014. A number of members in the House also raised this question. Mr. Scindia in the debate on the budget had first raised this question, that on one hand you say that you are against retrospective taxation, so does this itself or even for a period of 3 months become retrospective in character? I have reconsidered it and I propose to move a government amendment today in the finance bill itself that the new tax regime will not be applicable to transactions of sale of units which have taken place between 1st April and the 10th of July this year itself. So if you have sold during this period, this will not apply. The second official amendment to the finance bill that I propose today is with regard to the settlement commission. And I am proposing to expand the scope of approaching the settlement commission for settlement of tax disputes, and also including cases where proceedings have been initiated for reassessment, otherwise known as reopened cases, and proceedings which are pending for making a fresh assessment in pursuance of an order of a tribunal or a commissioner for setting aside or cancelling the assessment itself. Now for advance ruling, I propose an amendment because you may require more benches, to provide for additional benches. With regard to the transfer pricing that I have suggested, I propose an official amendment in that regard itself. And the further amendment I propose that for late filing of returns, there is a provision which had become onerous for a huge penalty which is per day. And there were no power of waiver itself. So if somebody says that it's filed after years, then per day the penalty used to become extremely exorbitant. So some discretion is being given to the CBDT in regard to that penalty where cases of late filing of returns are involved. The penalty as such will remain. With regard to the subordinate legislations, I propose to make two changes, one of which I had announced in the debate on the budget itself, that to encourage the wind energy program, there is an accelerated depreciation. There was a confusion whether we've extended it or not. Members wanted it to be extended, and I am therefore continuing with that accelerated depreciation. And there is the last amendment in relation to transfer pricing in the domestic transactions itself. Now these further changes will further simplify and smoothen the tax structure of this country and help us in raising the revenue, because this year we need a higher revenue itself because of meeting the fiscal deficit targets. And with these few observations, Madam, I commend the finance bill to the House for its acceptance.
कंसिडरेशन के लिए बोलना पड़ेगा ना. Yes. The question is that the bill be taken into consideration. Those in favor may say aye. Those against may say no.